Hello, I am Ulysses S. Grant, Commanding General of the U.S. Army during the American Civil War and the 18th President of the United States, serving from 1869 to 1877. As many of you know, in 1865 I had the honor of leading the Union armies to victory over the Confederacy, preserving our nation and its founding principles. Reflecting on that period of conflict and the years that followed, I am reminded of a speech I gave at the annual reunion of the Army of the Tennessee in Des Moines, Iowa, on September 29, 1875, a message I believe holds true even today. I said then, if we are to have another contest in the near future of our national existence, it will not be fought between regional factions, but rather between patriotism and intelligence on one side, and superstition, ambition, and ignorance on the other. Those words were meant as both a warning and a call to action. They remind us that the most dangerous conflicts are not always fought with armies on the battlefield, but can arise from within, where a lack of understanding and misguided ambition can threaten the fabric of our republic.
The way we got in this situation is pretty simple to explain. Basically, when Nixon was discovered having committed Watergate, people thought the Republican Party was washed up. But a clever staffer on in Nixon's White House came up with an idea for how to get more new Republican voters to replace all the people that were turned off by the corruption that had just been exposed, and perhaps save the party. His name was Lee Atwater, and he said, I know where there's all kinds of disgruntled white people. All you got to do is appeal to them over their anger about the end of Jim Crow and about school desegregation and about the Civil Rights Act. And these are the words that you'll say to kind of trigger them. Then we call these the racist dog whistles. And you will send a message to them that they are welcome in the Republican Party. And starting in the mid-70s to the mid-80s, there was a massive change in voter registration from Democrat to Republican on the part of all of these racists and lowlifes and ignorant people. At the same time, Trump started to have political ambitions. Now, it turns out Trump has an IQ of about 73. He barely functions as an adult. If it were not for the fact that his father gave him a lot of money, he wouldn't be able to function as an adult. Trump has less money now than he would have had if he'd just taken the money he got from his father and put it in an index fund in the stock market and just let it sit. But he's gradually played around with it all these years and lost it in all his lawsuits and so forth, and his 6 bankruptcies, and he's dissipated a fortune over his lifetime. Now, he's had the Russians for the last 20 years to bail him out, but ordinary people cannot be as dumb as Trump and still function. But Trump came out onto the public stage and started talking boldly like he wanted to do things politically and help the people of America, and he speaks like a third grader, because that's what somebody with an IQ of 73 talks like, even if they're an adult. Linguists have analyzed his speech, and they've made it plain. He speaks English at a third grade level. This energized dumb people, because for the first time they could understand a presidential candidate. And they said things like, oh, he speaks his mind. He's the first guy that doesn't use a bunch of fancy words and confuse me. Now I finally understand what he's saying. And of course, what he was saying was a lot of things they wanted to hear. They were the racist dog whistles. And so you had a beautiful alliance from their perspective of racists and stupid people. The lower 12% of the IQ distribution corresponds perfectly to Trump's supporters. Now, these people are so intelligent that there's actually a federal statute that prohibits their induction into military service. They didn't want to have a repeat, Congress didn't want to have a repeat of the McNamara's morons incident from Vietnam, which is a notorious thing you can look up on your own. McNamara's morons, it's called. Basically, we had a Secretary of Defense who had the idea that, hey, why don't we recruit low intelligence people, send them to war and see what happens. And what happened was they died in droves, and of course things got worse. And so they didn't want that to happen again, so they actually passed a law. You're not allowed to recruit and induct into military service the lowest 12% on the IQ range. But they're still allowed to vote, and Trump energized them. He made dumb people think that they finally understood politics. He made people strut around proud of themselves, thinking that they had a grasp of the issues, because they could tell on some level that Trump wasn't much smarter than they were, but there he was, a big shot. So he seemed like a champion for them. Now, of course, all these people forget that they aren't rich. They didn't have a dad hand them the equivalent of $412 million. And they can't do the things that Trump does, and they can't get away with the things Trump has gotten away with. And even Trump himself is not going to get away with them indefinitely. But the stage has been set, and this is where we're at. Basically, we have a fanatical core of low intelligence voters that are solidly behind Trump. They will back him no matter what he does or says, because they don't care what he does or says. They just know he's their guy. They understand him. They like him. He talks to them in a way that they can comprehend, and they are fanatical in their support of him. He has given them what they see as dignity and strength. And then at the other end of the spectrum are smart people from all walks of life. I actually used to be a Republican myself. I'm ashamed to admit it now, but I know I'm not alone. I mean, millions of people who make sure that they turn out to vote against Trump used to be actual Republicans, because the Republican Party is now nothing but a loony bin of the very low intelligent, and there's just no way that you can be associated with them at all. So now it's going to be
Hello, I am Lee Atwater. You may know me as a strategist who significantly influenced modern American political campaigns. I am often linked to the refinement and modernization of the Southern strategy, a political approach employed by some Republicans to appeal to white Southern voters by leveraging racial tensions and resistance to civil rights advancements. This strategy, though not originally my creation, became my pivotal tool in reshaping the political landscape of the South and cementing Republican dominance in the region. But what I hope you'll remember is the lesson I learned too late. Let me start with one of my reflections. Mostly, I am sorry for the way I thought of other people. Like a good general, I had treated everyone who wasn't with me as against me. During my career, I approached politics like warfare. I believed in winning at all costs. Opponents weren't just competitors, they were enemies. My strategies were designed to exploit fears and divisions, to polarize, and to ensure that my side emerged victorious. In the heat of the moment, it felt like the right thing to do. It felt like strength, like being a good general, leading my troops to victory. But in reality, this mindset was corrosive. It fostered an environment where compromise and dialogue were replaced with hostility and suspicion. Back then, it worked for my side, but it also sowed the seeds of deeper divisions in our society. Today, this approach has become the norm, and we see the results. Politics is no longer about building bridges or solving problems. It's about scoring points and tearing down the other side. This culture of us versus them has eroded trust, poisoned public discourse, and left a nation more divided than ever. Later in life, I came to realize the damage I had done, not just to others, but to myself and to the country I claimed to serve. As my life drew to a close, I reflected on the consequences of my ruthless ambition. I said, "It took a deadly illness to put me eye to eye with that truth, but it is a truth that the country, caught up in its ruthless ambitions and moral decay, can learn on my dime." This was my reckoning. I saw how the tactics I pioneered had contributed to a culture of moral decay. It wasn't just about winning anymore, it was about the price of that victory. I began to regret the way I had treated others, the divisions I had deepened, and the example I had set for future generations of political leaders. The win-at-all-costs mentality had cost me my humanity, and it had taken a toll on the very fabric of our nation. So, my hope is this: learn from my mistakes. Politics doesn't have to be a battlefield where we destroy each other to win. It can be a space for collaboration, for respect, and for working toward the common good. My regret should serve as a warning. Ambition without integrity, victory without empathy, will ultimately leave us all poorer. For more insights into how we can overcome the information war and rebuild unity in our divided world, follow information-warfare.com. Together, we can learn to fight the right battles for a better future.